being joined right here in our Lagos studio by Honorable Setonji David. He's a member, Lagos State House of Assembly. He's a lawmaker representing Badagry Constituency 2. We'll get to our guests in Abuja in a moment, but I'd like to set the tone, essentially, because, I mean, we saw Rivers State and then Lagos State following suit after that court judgment from the Federal High Court in Rivers State. And I'd like you to just build a foundation for us, if you may. We've seen what Rivers did. Originally, it wasn't a case that, I mean, Lagos State took to court, at least this recent one. But you followed suit by presenting a bill and then signing it into law. I should just say that that was a record signing, because in a few days, the bill became law. So essentially, to begin with, what was the thinking of Lagos State? Because, I mean, other states could have done that, but they didn't. Lagos State did. So why did you latch into that?
You see, in Lagos State, we have only been clamoring for true federalism. This is consumption tax, and these things are consumed in Lagos. It's expected that taxes on it should domicile in Lagos, should be collected in Lagos and used for people of Lagos. It has been going to be on. There are so many issues that have to do with the federation we are practicing. But this particular one, we have always been clamoring for, having a fair share of what is going on. So this particular tax is for us in Lagos, and we believe that, for instance, we generate over 55% of VAT in Nigeria, and we get a patronage sum of maybe less than 10%. Is that fair enough for a population of 24 million people, a former federal capital? So those are the issues, and we are happy that the Rivers State government went to court, and I mean, the court was very clear in the judgment that VAT is supposed to be a state affair, and we have no choice to follow suit.
Well, now that you mentioned the courts, we'll still talk about the process of making this bill. I mean, how much consultations went into it. But now that you reference the courts, I mean, just on Friday, just moments between when the governor signed that bill into law, the Court of Appeal asked parties to maintain status quo prior to the judgment in Rivers State. So is Lagos State still going ahead with the implementation in spite of that order from the Court of Appeal? Or what's the current state of that law now?
The status quo is that we have enacted a law in Lagos State, and I mean, and the law is in existence as we speak, and I believe strongly that until another judgment is passed by the Court of Appeal, to the extent that, I mean, what we have done is wrong, the law subsists.
I'm referencing Friday's Court of Appeal order to parties to, I know Lagos State asked to be joined in that case as well, but the appeal court asked parties to maintain status quo prior to that judgment, which we got, the River State got in Port Harcourt. So I'm asking that, in view of that, stay of execution, as it were, would Lagos State still be going ahead to execute the law? I'm talking about today, tomorrow.
I think we have to be very explicit when it comes to that law, to that judgment. By our own understanding, what is subsisting is our own law in Lagos until that law is set aside by the Court of Competent Jurisdiction. So in this instance, we are still, as far as Lagos is concerned, VAT in Lagos must be collected by Lagos State government and, spent by Lagos State government.
Okay, so let me get this right. You base this decision, I mean, to enact the law on a court judgment. Mm-hmm. But now that I bring to you the appeal court order asking parties to maintain status quo, you say you're not aware or you're not going to follow that particular order.
We are very law-abiding people in Lagos, and be rest assured that we will look at the judgment and follow the rule of law.
Let me just ask, are you aware of that judgment?
Of
or
course,
that order, I should say?
Well, I'm aware to some extent, but I've not read the full judgment. So, you cannot just take it out of context. Sometimes you need to understand the full implication of that judgment, and that's being handled by the state government.
So as it stands today, Lagos is still going ahead with implementing that law?
Correct.
Okay, so let's talk about the process of making this law. I'd like to know what kind of consultations, because I think the bill was presented on the 8th of September, and just how many days after it was passed and we saw the bill signed into law. Just how much of consultation went into this? And I'm talking from businesses, from consumers, those that are involved, that are directly going to be impacted by this.
The bill was presented on Monday, and we had a public hearing on Wednesday. You know, we're very clear in Lagos State House of Assembly. When we are enacting laws, there are procedures to the extent that when the bill is introduced, on the floor, we call the floor first hearing. After the second hearing is, you know, given to the appropriate committee. And in this instance, we follow suit. And the public hearing was held on Wednesday, and the attendance was wonderful. All the stakeholders were present. Everybody was there. I thought even the child too. Well, I'm not sure whether we were there, but everybody was there. So it was the bill passed through the normal process to the extent that at the end of the day, on Thursday, it was discussed again. The outcome of the what do you call it? The public hearing was discussed at the plenary, and the law was passed by the House. By the standards of the House?
Yes. Would you say this is a normal process, or this is a normal time frame that bills go through before they are passed?
Very normal. Very, very normal.
So bills are presented on Monday, passed on
we have had
Wednesday,
like
signed into law
it depends on the
on Friday.
It depends on the exigency of the situation. There are cases like that. We have passed several bills like that. So this is not abnormal.
So what was the exigency of the situation? Why that speed?
Let me tell you something. Lagos State was formerly the capital of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And in other climes, you are supposed to give us special taxes. We don't enjoy anything special from the federal government. Whereas the Federal Capital Territory, they know what Abuja is given to get status. We don't enjoy that in Lagos. Is it fair enough for a population of almost 24 million people? Apart from that, you know the implication, when we were federal capital, you know, that brought a lot of burden on the people of Lagos State. So anywhere we can get money, you know, to fund the infrastructure development of the state, we will not hesitate to do that. In this particular instance, we have been, you know, clamoring for this VAT thing, and thank God, a judgment was passed. So we had no choice but to take advantage of that judgment and make the appropriate law.
So when you talk about the kind of consultations that you had, I want to believe that businesses presented their own input.
Of course, yes.
And you took them on board. I want to believe consumers as well, those that will be paying directly, also, put their input as well. Yes. How much of a consideration did you, make with those inputs when you eventually passed that bill?
For instance, the federal inland revenue is charging 7.5%. At the public hearing, the businesses actually requested us to reduce it, and we took that into consideration. Many other things that were taken into consideration. You know, that's how we pass our bills, and it's not only House of Assembly, but the public had input, and those inputs were taken into consideration. I just started one of the examples.
Did the businesses share their fears about double taxation? Did they share their fears?
Obviously.
So how did the bill put that into consideration? How did you accommodate that? Is there a solution for that in this law now?
Yeah. As far as Lagos State is concerned, we try as much as possible to run away from any form of double taxation. And in this instance, we did that. And we allayed the fears of the stakeholders that there will never be any form of double taxation, because that would be a burden on the treasury.
You know, I was looking at the sharing formula in this particular one. So what we had before in the VAT Act of the federal government is states get 50%,
yes,
and the local governments get 35%, yes, and then the federal government gets 15%. Yes. But looking at the formula, you've talked about the percentage, 6% compared to the 7.5% we had before. But looking at the formula, the states will be getting 75%, and local government will get 25%. And if we're going to correct for what we had before, divide the 15% that the federal government gets in some sense. So split it by That's 7.5, 7.5. So that means states will be getting, what, 58%? And local governments will be getting, what, 42% or thereabout. I hope my math is correct. So how did you come to that conclusion of having states getting 75 and local government getting 20?
See, this is Lagos State. Even when the state government is collecting 100%, all the money is still going to be spent in Lagos State. So it does not really matter to us because it has to do with if you give people 70% to the local government, it's still the same thing. The money. What we are after is to ensure that this money is used for the people of Lagos State, and that's exactly what we have achieved. It does not really matter whether it's a 25% or 30% to local. And there's no law that is permanent. With time, we always review our laws. So when it's time for us, when there are arguments that are supporting increase, we will do that.
I'm quite curious when you say it doesn't matter, because it's on the same premise that states, or at least Lagos State, River State, are standing on, saying that you need to empower the federating units, the subnationals. And there's been that clamor to strengthen other tiers of government, starting from the local government. And if there's anything we've seen so far, it would seem that local governments need all the support, all the funding they can get, because people are essentially, that's the closest government to people. So it's on that same premise that states are fighting to ensure that this VAT is collected by states, and yet you say it doesn't matter.
But what we are saying is this: the local governments are in Lagos State. Lagos State government is Lagos State government. The development that's going on in Lagos State is in the local governments. If the money even if the state collects 70% or 65%, they're still going to spend it in all the local governments. The roads to be constructed are in the state. Is that they are not local government roads. They are roads that belong. Any development in any local government is development in the state. So the issue of parenting, what concerns us most is that this money is spent in Lagos State and not at any other state.
By extension, people will tell you that, well, states are in Nigeria as well. So, I mean, what matters is that...
This is we're talking about our own money here now. Value-added tax, construction tax of Lagos State. Wherever you spend it in Lagos State, doesn't really matter. But that's our view as at now. With time, can be reviewed. I mean, just like I said earlier, there's no permanent law. I mean, lawmaking is a dynamic process. With time, when we see other reasons why, or if people adduce other reasons why there will be changes in the sharing formula, it will be done.
Also, another major issue is how well small businesses will be protected with this law. And I think it's quite important to help people know what this law entails. A lot of people have probably not seen the copy of the law, but they're looking to know what to expect. I mean, the court cases notwithstanding, I mean, the cases will go through the whole process, but they want to know what to expect, at least with this law. And I'm talking about small businesses now. For the VAT Act on the federal level, they had a protection for businesses. There was a certain turnover, I think 20 million or 25 million. So businesses that don't make that much are exempt. What provisions are you making? So I'm thinking for the barber, the makeup artists, and those people, are they exempted?
You see, Lagos State government is people's government, and be rest assured that the interests of our, small businesses will be taken care of. In fact, what we intend to practice in Lagos will even be better than what federal government was doing when it has to do with small businesses, small scale businesses, and the likes. So we are very much taking their interest into consideration when the operational guideline on this particular law takes effect. All the small businesses will have been taken care of appropriately.
Honorable, it's written boldly in the VAT Act that, businesses with this turnover or below this turnover are exempt. So they're protected. Their rates wouldn't be as high, such that people can patronize them. They can make money and, of course, grow from that. So it's written boldly. So the question I'm asking essentially is it boldly written in that law that businesses that make, you reduced it from 7.5 to 6%. So, you have shown some good faith, as it were, saying that you want to at least not put burden on people. But for businesses, is it boldly written that this type of business, small businesses that are not making up to this, are exempt?
You see, after the law has been passed and, appended to by the governor, we also have what we call operational, guideline. those ones will be spelled out in that guideline. That's how we do things in Lagos, because we cannot put everything to the law. The law, is the general framework. The operational guideline, I mean, we spell out what and what will be affected. So I want to assure you that small businesses' interests will be taken care of in the operational guideline. And that means that because it's already in the law, their interest is already protected in the law, that the Commissioner for Finance will come out with those guidelines that will ensure that we spread out, and it's being done already. So there's no fear. Our people should not entertain any form of fear, that our laws are meant for the people, and we always take their interest into consideration. And in this instance, their interest is going to be protected.
But I'm still going to stay on that, because I mean the law is the law essentially. If there's no provision for it in law, I don't know how far-reaching the operational guidelines will be, because if it's not reflected in law, you can only give operational guidelines based on what you have in law. And I believe I'm speaking for millions of businesses in Lagos. I mean, Lagos is a commercial capital of Nigeria, and you have a lot of businesses, young people, in fact, even old people that are into business, and they don't essentially want to be hampered by this law. So again, how far-reaching will that operational guidelines be when it's not boldly written in law?
The operational guideline that we are talking about is an extension of the law. It's just a way to spell out some other things that are hidden in the law that people may not understand. It's part of the law. It's passed by the House of Assembly. So it's the law. Because those guidelines, and in this particular instance, I'm confirming to you that the interests of the small-scale businesses are even well protected, better than what's at federal level.
Essentially, you're saying that businesses with, below a turnover of, is it 20 million,
yeah.
10 million, 25 million?
It's going to be protected.
They'll be protected.
Very well.
And we can take your word to the bank on that one.
Yes.
All right. I think over time, this conversation has largely been painted as federal versus states, or FIRS versus states, essentially. Is that what it comes across to you as?
Well, FIRS,
yes,
is an agency of the federal government. This is Lagos state government. We have no issues with FIRS. It's a agency of federal government, but as far as we are concerned in Lagos, this is the federating state. We are a state. We are practicing federalism. So, and we cannot be contending with an agency of federal government to the extent that we have issues. In this particular instance, what is going on was stated clearly by the court, and that's what we are dealing with. We have no issue with FRCN. So of course they have taken us. We are trying to appeal and things like that. Those things we sorted out. But Lagos State government is very much on firm ground, and the governor is doing excellently well to ensure that the interest of the state is protected.
Did you have any pushback from the FIRS, federal government, and any guys in this process?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
There was no feedback. There was no pushback whatsoever.
Not yet.
Okay, it's interesting you say not yet, as though you expect it in the coming days. But let's expand this further. In the coming days, implementation. Well, not to forget the case is still in court. But let's imagine that, not to preempt the court, but I'm sure that implementation is big on the mind of the Lagos state government. And when I talk about implementation, I'm talking about collection. And what you hear a lot of people say is FIRS has built capacity over years. They've had years and years of experience learning how to do it right. So they keep improving on the things they've done the previous year. So you can't take that away from the FIRS. They have sort of perfected, to a large extent, collection of VAT, as it were. So the question will be just how well is Lagos State ready? How well is Lagos State prepared to ensure that collection is smooth?
Lagos Internal Revenue Service, which is an arm of state government, is well placed to handle this matter. They are just like any other revenue service in this country. This particular, our own revenue, internal revenue service is doing excellently well, and they are well, equipped to take over this responsibility. I can assure you that they will do the needful. It took federal inland revenue years before they get to where they are. The issue of VAT is just right here now, and if they interest you to know that what obtains the federal inland revenue was assisted by state government. Because those people that were operating the Lagos internal revenue were the one who assisted them at the federal inland, who were assisting them at the federal inland. So the level they are, we are more than equipped to do what is right.